Hello, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025. And from City Life, we're excited to have this new teaching series based around the book The God Story by Alain Emerson and Adam Cox. And it's my job just to kickstart things looking at the first chapter of the book. And we encourage you just to find the book, get a hold of the book from any reliable bookstore, and to take a look at it with us. We want to go through it slowly over this year and absorb everything that is in it. It is a very rich text, and it takes us back to the story of God. And my job is to start at the beginning. Let me just get you a quote from 24/7 leader in the USA. Tyler Staton said, Alan and Adam have articulated the most important story ever told, one that spans culture, place, and people, the drama of the Bible. They've done justice to its ancient roots while making it accessible to new generations in a changing landscape. Most profoundly, they've written it as an invitation to live in this story until we live it out. And part of the invitation that we have in this is not just to understand God's story better and to understand the story of God, but to know the storyteller, to know the one who's told this story, and to be in relationship with him and be close to him as the one that has created us. So, yeah, as I said, my job is to go to the beginning. So, in the words of Sister Maria, let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. So the first chapter is around the origins and the beginning, and starts in the book of Genesis. The key themes that we'll be looking at through the book that they pick up on, so they run through the Bible, but look at these three particular themes: presence, family, and kingdom. So very much part of our DNA and culture and things that we believe in as being important to us. So as I said, chapter 1 is the beginning. And the very first words of the Bible, as you will all know, are a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. No, only joking. I'm a Star Wars fan, so that was just a little bit of silliness there for me. The first four words of the Bible are "in the beginning, God." Genesis 1, verse 1. And they spend a bit of time just at the start of this chapter, just think about the profoundness of those four words, that God existed in the beginning before anything, that God was there, and the nature of God. And we're just going to pick out some of the headings that they use through the chapter, and then drop down into a few of them to understand a bit better around there. My favourite worship song at the moment, I don't know what yours is, but the one I love is this one, Holy Forever by Chris Tomlin. And this little verse here just talks about 1,000 generations falling down and worship, sing the song of ages to the Lamb. All have gone before us, and all who will believe will sing the song of ages to the Lamb. And that verse gives us that sense of eternity of God, that we're not the first generation to worship God, and we won't be the last. And as we read through the origin of the God story, again, it gives us that sense of history and that sense of timelessness, that God exists in, that he was there before us, and he's gone through generations. And what this book picks up is just that sense of all the different generations that have gone before us and those that will come after us, just like this song. So yeah, if you've not sung that song, have a listen to it. It's a good song. So I've just pulled out the headings from chapter 1. I've just pulled out the headings from the book, chapter 1, and it starts with the eternal family. So in the beginning, God. That we'll come back to that, the word used for God there. Then out of nothing comes everything. Then formless and empty, chaos to order, the power of his voice, the first week of creation, the crown of creation, original glory, and life in the garden. Now, there's 9 headings there. I can't really cover all 9 points, I think, in my talk without going on too long. So I'll drop down into some of them, and I'll look at the first one, which is the eternal family. And the exciting thing about that, in the beginning God, is that even in the first 4 words, there's that the word used is Elohim, which has that sense of plurality about it, that God isn't a single person, but it is three persons in one. So God himself is an eternal family. So before anyone else was created, there was already a family that existed, the eternal family, God's Elohim. So God alone is God, is one of the points made, but God is not alone. God's never been alone or felt lonely and needed to create someone for him to be with. He was already in communion with the family, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Eternally exist as perfect love. So it's this three persons loving each other so closely and so perfectly that makes that unity and that oneness of God so great. And then it's into that we are invited, and everything is born out of the love of Elohim. Creation is born, and we are created as part of that, and we're invited into this eternal perfect family to join with them. So it's an exciting start to the God story, that God wasn't just sat alone getting bored and lonely, but he was in a dynamic loving relationship, Elohim, and he invites us into that relationship. And that story is an exciting one because it means that we ourselves don't have to be alone. We can join in with the love of God and know that God is love with us. The second heading I was just going to drop down into was just the shape of the first week of creation. And the creation story is told in a few different places in the Bible, but predominantly at the start of Genesis, you have these things that happen, and we will know the story well. But there's 10 acts of speaking, 8 acts of making, 7 pronouncements that it was good, and 6 affirmations. God saw it was good, and there was evening and there was morning. And so the power of God's voice is one of the themes that's carried through there. The fact that every atom has an element of sound in it is an exciting thing. And when we look at the nature of creation, whether we look at it with our naked eye or we look at it under a microscope or we look at it through a telescope, currently there's a probe going out to the sun, isn't there, to have a look at what the sun looks like. It's an amazing thing. But when we look at the creation, and we can look at it much more closely than generations that have gone before us because of the lenses we've created, that we can see just the wonder of God in the tiny microbiology, but also in the number of galaxies that we're now aware of that are in creation that we weren't aware of generations ago. So it's an exciting creation to look at, and God did all of this by speaking and making and pronouncing. It's a phenomenal thing to know that God is that powerful, and the power of his voice is so amazing. And then to top it all, we are called the crown of creation. That's the next heading. So that God created humans in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. And that God didn't speak us into being. He didn't say, let there be humans, but instead he puts his hand into the dirt of the ground to form a being. So we're made with the hands of God rather than with the voice of God, and we're called the crown of creation in a number of places in the Bible. And so that when we think about how amazing the world is, how amazing the galaxies are, how amazing animals are and plants are, the fact that we are the crown of God's creation is exciting, and it gives us great sense of value to know that God made us with his own hands, and that we were the crown of his creation. He looks down on us with joy, and instead of saying it was good when people were created, he said it was very good, and he was pleased with what he had made. So the next heading I've got is from the book is this sense of original glory. So often Christians will talk about original sin, which is our next talk, I think. So Bev will bring that next time around, the fall of human beings. But before the fall of human beings, there was this notion that we carry the glory of God, which was our teaching theme last year, that we are glory carriers. So if we carry the glory of God, that gives us an amazing self-worth, doesn't it? An amazing sense that we are valued and that we are cared for by a divine being. God cares for us, knows us, loves us, and he made us. So often a talk that I'll do that is to know that God made us, knows us, and he loves us. But if we know those three things, it gives us incredible value about ourselves, and also a belief that God is for us, not against us. In this section, there's a quote from C.S. Lewis saying there are no ordinary people because we're all made by God, by the hands of God. And a quote from the book is, every day of your life has been packed with potential to reflect the glory of your Creator. I think what this means for us is not just for ourselves that we have this sense of value and importance to our own lives, but that every person that we meet, every person we come into contact with, is a valuable person. There's no ordinary people that we encounter, people that have been made by God. God knows them, and He's speaking to them, that He does want to engage with them as well as with us. So for a lot of our work as a church, with the people that we help, sometimes they may not be seen as that important by others in society, or picked on by people, or not regarded very well. But we have no choice but to regard people as important and valuable around us, whatever disadvantages they might have in life, because ultimately they've got this infinite value of being created by God Himself. And so they may not own very much or have very many rights in this country, or they may not have many people that value and care for them, but God cares for them and God notices them. This year we led a funeral service, a commemoration service for people who are homeless, who died. We led that with the city and with homeless healthcare team. And one of those people was unnamed. We didn't know who they were. And so in that service, we made the point that we may not know who they are. We may not be able to name them through the coroner or through the police, but God would have known their name and God would have cared for them. And they are as important as anyone else that was in the room and in the service, because they were made by God. The last point I was going to drop down into was the next one. It's called Life in the Garden. And this is really the story of Adam and Eve in Genesis and their relationship with God, that they had this relationship where they walked with God in the cool of the evening, and they knew Him. So it wasn't just that they were created and He watched them like animals in a zoo, but He was their friend and their companion, and they had entered into this relationship with Elohim, with God, and they walked with Him. And that ultimately is our primary purpose in life, is to be in relationship with God, connected with Him, and to know Him as our Father and as our friend, and as someone that we can trust in our lives. And that's the invitation that comes through this book. It's not just to know more about God, but to know God and to know that He cares for us. He made us, created us, knows us, and He wants us to daily just be in contact with Him and close to Him, just like Adam and Eve were. The second thing was just around our relationship to one another. So God said it wasn't good for Adam to be alone, and so He created a companion. And so our friendships and family to one another. So that's one of the key themes running through the book of family, that family is something that God loves and believes in, and was something that He created there in the beginning. It was His idea to have marriage and family and tribes and people that you connect with through there. And that's an important part of our purpose in life. And the last thing in the life of the garden was that we have a relationship to creation itself. Not so they were given, Adam and Eve were given charge of stewarding the animals and the plants and caring for the garden and seeing it all grow and develop, and to name the animals and so on. And it must have been an exciting thing to come up with names and to be in charge of creation and see it grow and develop. And then the idea then that's explained in the book is that they started in Eden, but the aim was that relationship, that closeness with God, that care for creation and family was not just for Eden, but it went all across the world. And so that God's story began in a small garden, but it extends now across the whole globe. There's a church family across the globe, and there's a corporate care that we have for the planet and for the people, the animals, the plants that are within it. So we have this stewardship responsibility, which is a big thing, isn't it, when we think about the effects of climate change at the moment and the impact that has, and what part we might play as churches within that, around caring for our planet. So there's our overview of chapter 1. Hope you found that exciting. Do grab hold of the book. I've got a copy here. Do grab hold of the book and read it carefully, chapter 1. And then I've just got a few questions just to put at the end, just to think about what this start to the God story means for us and how we might relate back to it. And hopefully through the year, like all stories, they develop over as they're told, don't they? And so when we've got to the end of the story, at the end of the year, we'll be able to think back to what the beginning was and how that relates to how the rest of the story unfolds. So here's some questions for the groups, your groups, just to consider, or for you to consider in relation to this chapter 1. Thank you. So here are just some questions for reflection. Number 1, what did you discover about God, about people in the world in this part of the story, the origin of the story? How does it make you feel to know you've been invited into the love of the eternal family? And lastly, how does understanding the 3 elements of your original design, relationship with God, relationship with others, stewarding creation, help you to understand God's call upon your life? There's 3 questions just to chat about and discuss. Hope you've enjoyed today and given you some food for thought. Do grab hold of the book, as I said, and we look forward to going through the teaching series this year and going deeper into the God story altogether. So thank you very much. God bless. Happy New Year.